Hi there, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is Mark Rowlette here with Damon Tanzi from South Shore Retirement Services, where we go beyond the numbers to help people worry less and live more. Our Money and Meaning podcast is just that. It's so much more than just the spreadsheet, just the numbers. We really want people to understand that. Don't lose sight of the fact of why you save money in the first place, right, Dee? I mean, that's
right.
What we do.
Absolutely. It's for people to be able to do the things that they want to do. And sure, we talk about strategies, and we're going to talk about things to think about before year end. I mean, the fall is a great time. It's a mental reset. Our kids are back in school, and while many of our clients' kids are grown and gone, it's sort of when summer's over, we get back in the business of our money or back in the business of focusing on work. And now's a good time to at least tee up some of the things to think about before we get into the craziness of the holiday season. And before you know it, the year's over and you're like, oh, geez, I didn't do any of the stuff I wanted to.
I think, we talk about this every day, every month, every year that we've been in this world where there's certain things that you just should be doing at certain times of the year. But this year was a big one, right? I mean, in July with the big, beautiful bill,
yes,
it was such huge sweeping changes that people need to be addressing how some of the changes may or may not impact them and their families because it's different this year.
Right. And when it comes to taxes, a lot of things have to be done by year end. Not everything can be pushed off till April when you might file your taxes. When it clicks over from December 31st to January 1st, you may have missed an opportunity, around Roth conversions or tax loss harvesting or many different things that you don't get to carry over into the new year. Either you do it now or it's like, oops, sorry, I missed that opportunity.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is that lots of people think that they have everything on point, right? That their plan is solid, it's relatively up to date, and most importantly, that their team, their advisors, the people who are helping them are also up to date. But we see invitations coming in from other competitors to workshops that they're giving, and I just happened to see one the other day. I was in the kitchen at the office, and one of them said the importance of the new Secure Act. Now, the Secure Act is relatively new, but it's 5 years old. Right. So really not staying up to date on what's currently going on. And, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that people should absolutely be doing, how they should be able to, make sure that it's getting done in a timely fashion so they're not waiting until December 31st to do it. But also really starting to look at the basics of the big, beautiful bill changed a lot of stuff for people and it will automatically impact them. But just because it automatically impacts you doesn't mean that you shouldn't take a look and see, all right, am I getting too much income now, which sounds crazy, but am I paying taxes on money that I'm not using unnecessarily?
Right. And I think people think that when something's automatic, that it will just take care of itself. And sure, you might automatically get a tax deduction, but the bigger question is, what can you do with that opportunity? If you're a person who's 65 or older or a married couple, you've got this extra potential $6,000 a year deduction per person. Okay, you get that automatically if you qualify, et cetera, but does that mean you should look at doing more Roth conversions this year than you did last year? Does that mean that you might not be over the Medicare IRMA threshold? So yeah, things happen automatically, but the planning opportunity does not happen. I think that's one of the key points we want to make in today's podcast is you might need to do something in order to take advantage of what's going to happen automatically, as it were.
Yeah, so I mean, when you start looking at these things, just because it automatically happens, just because, I'm going to get a little bit more money, don't just ignore it, right? I mean, we want people to live their lives and enjoy the things and the fruits of their labor, but don't just ignore something because it could be really costly. And, the big, beautiful bill changed a bunch of tax rules. Right. And one of the things that I first noticed was that they kept saying, this has been made permanent. This has been made permanent. But it's not permanent, right? It's permanent until the next administration gets up there. And we say that all the time. So there's a window of opportunity for loads of the people that we're already working with and many of the people who listen to our radio shows, watch this podcast, that really the responsibility is on the person to just make that first kind of call out to their financial advisor, to the people that they're working with and saying, what do I know or what should I know that I don't know now? How has this actually changed and what opportunities have presented themselves? And, we talked to clients recently specifically on that senior bonus, right? An extra 12 grand in tax deduction each and every year on their tax return. And they're like, that's great. That means I'll have more money. I'm just like, absolutely. That means that you'll have the same net income if you want, using less of your money. So would we consider an opportunity to say, let's take the extra 12,000 that's no longer going to be taxable to you and do something with it, like Roth conversion or leveraging it up and using it to protect them if they got sick for a nursing home.
Right, because the idea that the tax cuts will stay as they are forever is just not realistic, right? Mathematically, taxes almost have to go higher. I wish that weren't the case, but with the debt and the deficit, it's likely that in the future taxes will be higher. So the question is, what can I do this year and next year and every single year? And for them, it's an idea around increasing Roth conversions. For other people, it might be something different. But the point is, if you're waiting for taxes to be lower than they are now, you're probably going to be waiting the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
What can I do now? What should I do now? And what is this one big beautiful bill? What opportunities has it created that I didn't have before? The senior bonus, the now enhanced SALT deduction up to $40,000, right? That might provide people additional headroom in their tax brackets. There's all these different sort of ins and outs of the bill that will give people an opportunity if they know what to look for.
So what can you do? One of the things that we feel that you should be doing is pull out last year's tax return. Listen, we're not giving tax advice. We help people build proactive tax strategies. But pull out your tax return and look and see, where did your income come from last year? Was it Social Security? Was it distributions from an IRA account, dividend income, things like that? Look at where you were last year and then simulate how that would be taxed this year post BBB, right? Post Big Beautiful Bill. And if that's confusing to you, that's okay, right? Because people go into retirement, they just want to do the stuff, the fun things. They don't want to completely take their eye off the ball of their money. But that's why we will sit with clients and look at the previous year's tax return and say, how would that be different if last year the Big Beautiful Bill had already passed, and how much more money would you have? And then map out, here is some options and some opportunities that we could address. Here's what the positive outcome's going to be, meaning how much more money you get to put in your pocket. And then you can make a better decision as to whether you want to do that or not.
Absolutely. All these things are interrelated, and we see our industry and other financial professionals that we might compete with, maybe they're focused on income or they're focused on investments, but they're missing the tax part. And that really throws a whole plan off. If your strategy for withdrawals is, just take it from this account or that account because that's easiest, or the money in the bank, that's not a withdrawal plan, right? And that's going to mean you're going to miss tax opportunities, you're going to miss investment opportunities. The reason we have those 5 key areas that we talk about in our process is that you can't just isolate your investments. And a lot of times people, I think, get very focused on, well, I did very well in my investments. Like, that's amazing. Congratulations. What does that mean you should be doing in addition to that? Or what does that mean in terms of how much you might pay in taxes? And the answer is, the more your money grows, well, geez, that's great. But maybe that means you're setting yourself up to pay more in taxes if you don't address that problem now.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different directions that a person could potentially go in. And honestly, when we talk to most clients or talk to most people about ideas and strategies, they're like, oh, that makes an awful lot of sense. But it's kind of like having like a home gym. You need to have somebody that's holding you accountable to get this done. That's why people like us exist, where it's like, all right, we're going to do this. Here's why we're going to do it. And we're going to help you accomplish it, meaning that we're going to do it for you or on your behalf.
Right.
So you don't have to think about those things, because the opportunities are, to me, completely endless, where you might have been given, we're doing a presentation on this, you might have been giving money to charity and not actually seeing any tax benefit from it because it didn't make sense to do it any different way. But the BBB has changed the game completely, where now people, I think, will be going back for at least a couple of years and considering itemized deductions for a couple of years, because there's a much bigger tax benefit to that. But how would they know unless somebody's proactively bringing it to their attention?
Right, because we're all creatures of habit. If I give $10,000 a year to charity, and I've done that for as long as I can remember, I'm likely just to keep doing that. But what if I gave $50,000 in 1 year and got a bigger tax deduction, which is kind of what you're talking about. And the point of today's show isn't just charitable giving, but you can be doing the exact same thing the way you want to be doing it, and we can just sort of tweak behind the scenes a little bit how that's going to work tax-wise or investment-wise, and that might yield some benefit that you didn't even know existed, because maybe your existing financial people just they don't do that, right? We hear that a lot, like, oh, my guy doesn't do that, or my gal just doesn't do that part of the plan. We say, okay, but this is a really important part that you should be looking at. Why are you leaving that unexamined, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, you've probably seen a bunch of people since July that are newish, clients
Yes.
or new people that we're meeting from the various events and have relatively up-to-date financial plans, but there's always an opportunity, right? It doesn't mean that every single person you meet, I mean, you're good at your job, but not every single
not that good,
person
yeah.
that
They
you
won't
meet
become a
becomes a
client, right,
client.
yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they don't leave the room, leave the conference room, Zoom, whatever way they're connecting with you, that they're aware of something that they didn't know before that's
Right.
going to give them a positive, outcome in some way, shape, or form. And I
Right.
think that's so critical to staying on top and educating yourself and the clients that we serve on it's their life savings, right? Why wouldn't you want to know something?
We talk a lot about second opinions at our live events, and really what people are coming in for when they meet us is a second opinion, either because they're not sure their existing financial person has done a complete job, or they're doing it themselves and they just don't know what they don't know. We hear that a lot. I don't know what I don't know, Damon or Mark. And you think in the medical field, if you had a serious diagnosis for whatever it was, it's very common to get a second opinion. You should want to get a second opinion. In our industry, it's the same thing, right? If you're not sure if you're missing something, take some action and find out, right? You're no worse for the wear if everything's great. Now that we're in the fall, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast, it's a good time to look at what you've done so far this year or map out what you're thinking of doing. So for example, look at what your total income is for this year. Add up your Social Security. If you have a pension, add that up. Add up IRA distribution. Sort of take stock of where your income is so far this year. And then that might give us an opportunity to project out, okay, how much more will you spend this year? And then how much room is left in your tax bracket for Roth conversions or for charitable giving. So really looking at where your income is so far this year, being mindful of the IRMA Medicare brackets. A lot of people are often very surprised to wake up one year and have to pay more for Medicare because they blew through the threshold without even realizing really what it was. So keeping that in mind, but start to go through the checklist of, okay, are all my beneficiaries up to date? Is my estate plan up to date, right? Don't wait until December 31st and pull out things out of your drawer and wonder why there's not enough time to get it done. Start now when there's still, 4 months left in the year.
I mean, one of the things that we tell people all the time to do is, if they feel comfortable, have a conversation with their families, right? This is the sort of things that we're thinking about doing.
Right.
This is the, what's important to us. This is how we want to live our lives in retirement, and just share that conversation, for no other reason than sharing them, kind of your beliefs in what you want to do with your life, but also making sure that they know where things are. We always say to clients, maybe write down your top 3 money questions. And I think that's important to a lot of our listeners. If you're going to engage and have a conversation with somebody at our office, write down 3 questions that you have, right? Things that maybe you've been thinking about. There's no judgment at all in any conversation.
You've probably heard those questions many times before.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're
sure.
excellent. When can I retire? Do I have enough money? I mean, these are sort of common themes that we hear from so many different people. How can I pay less in taxes? Am I taking too much risk, too little risk? I mean, these are things that are sort of tried and true questions about financial planning that people really, I think, deeply want to know the answers to.
Yeah, and sometimes people think that they're the only person who's ever gone through something like this. And working with people like us, it allows them, I guess, the depth and wisdom of, we've seen situations similar to yours before. This is how we potentially could address yours in a way that we help somebody else. And here's what the positive outcome is going to be.
So this month, folks, we have our retirement readiness checklist available for you to download. Every month, we've got a tie-in for what the topic is that you can get some additional information. Just really have a takeaway from what we're talking about. As always, down in the links below, you can set up a time to talk to one of us, set up a time to come to our office, or attend one of our many upcoming live events. So on behalf of Mark Rowlette, I'm Damon Tanzi. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we hope to see you back here on the Money and Meaning podcast very soon.